That is Queen Bee.
Hey everybody, it's Busy Little Bee. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Rosie's weird Instagram stories from yesterday. She did some in the morning, some in the evening, and then some after the documentary. So we'll be going through that. I want to just kind of break down real quick what her role in the documentary was. Across 3 hours of content, she got maybe a minute of airtime total. She explained what death feederism is. She did they don't tell you the price that you pay. She said, he tells you that you're going to be treated like a goddess, it sounds like she's talking about him. Now, I'm sure that was editing and she wasn't talking about him because she hadn't experienced anything with him. But remember how she told us she had her own subplot? Apparently her own subplot was talking about Zio from the perspective of a viewer. I thought it was interesting that they labeled her a feederism expert. And Discovery, HBO, whoever these producers are, you got to know that now everything you make, people are going to question the people that you choose to call experts. Because this woman is not an expert on feederism. She's made her entire life about feederism. Stefan is obviously a creep. He has a lot of serious allegations against him. He's trying to act like he's not a feeder, and in my opinion, he certainly is. Don't forget, Rosie said that we should give this man grace. I will never forget that after hearing these women's stories. So Rosie explained what death feederism is. She talked about Zio, and she had they tell you you're beautiful, you're a goddess, but they don't tell you the price that you pay. So like that was her entire part in the 3 episodes of the docuseries. Stefan claims that this woman had his twins against his will. He did not consent to it, and he has not seen those children. In his words, quote, for my mental health. That's why he hasn't seen his children. I think that's pretty much all you need to know about this guy. He keeps young women around who are vulnerable, who have been pushed out of their families or out of society. They've been marginalized their entire lives, and he tries to make them feel special. And it really does feel like a cult. That's it. That's all as far as Pearadise, but I want to talk about all that happened on Twitter yesterday and Rosie's Instagram stories. So we're going to start with her first set of Instagram stories, and then we'll go to Twitter because she was trending because of these stories. She happened to be sitting on her toilet while making these videos. Buckle up!
Just because I'm not a victim of Stefan does not mean I am not a victim of sexual assault and exploitation in my past. Just because you may not understand why I'm in the dock does not mean that I don't have a right to be there.
What bewilders me now looking back at this after seeing the documentary is like she was not portrayed as a victim of any kind. So I'm sure if she told her story, they didn't find it necessary to tell that story. And I don't think anyone is saying that like Rosie has never been victimized, but she's trying to overshadow or overtalk the victims of Stefan, who are the sole reason for this documentary. They are the survivors of him. This was their chance to tell their story. This was not about Rosie, and she wants to make every damn thing about her.
I'm doing the best that I can from everything that's happened in the past couple weeks to not make problems for anybody else. I just wish someone gave a singular fuck about the fact that I'm a person with trauma too, and that trauma is real. The past several days, I have gone out of my way to shut the fuck up. Because it doesn't matter what I do, I am being relentlessly attacked. I just saw a comment on a video that had nothing to do with me, that was about me, and how I'm making everything about me when I wasn't even in the video. Girl World is using this opportunity to make me out to look like a fucking monster while creating the problem. And I I just did not anticipate certain parts of this. I'm not talking about the live stream stuff and all of that. I've said what I've said on that, and I'm culpable in that aspect. I'm talking specifically about how people keep saying actual victims.
Rosie's need to be seen as a victim is very concerning, especially considering she says she spent years in therapy. Like, obviously, it didn't do much fucking good. If you are constantly still talking about your trauma and crying about what happened to you at 6 years old when you're 34, that therapy wasn't helpful. Yes, she may have been an actual victim at some point in her life. This documentary, however, was about Stefan's victims. It was not about her, and she knows it.
Watching people twist some of my most personal trauma into how I'm a liar. Like, I think the big one I saw was when I was in those streams and I was being just barraged with hate. People were saying that I lied about, like, I said that I was basically raped over the internet, like, that all this stuff, when they took a real traumatic experience out of context.
In the We're All Insane podcast, Rosie talks about being raped via internet. How is that twisting her words? That was exactly what she said. She said she was raped via Skype.
In the We're All Insane podcast interview, I shared the story about what I believe was the first attack of my cyber stalker. How he blackmailed me, used the fact that I was, an ex-Mormon, afraid of my parents finding out that I was posting illicit photos online at the time, because my parents and I hadn't had a lot of conversations, and I genuinely was afraid they would disown me. And he collected my family's information, and he coerced me into doing something I've never even told a therapist about. And that is just one of the things he did during an 8-year period. That story is real. I've never fucking lied about that or any of my fucking trauma. And I'm reaching to a point, I'm not engaging in reaction content about me. I'm doing my best to avoid it, but I'm getting so much in my DMs and in my own comments. People who put my cousin's names in my comments, who, by the way, is the man currently serving 30 years in federal prison for his shit with CSAM. Look, I get that I'm controversial and that I've recently fucked up. I'm just a person, man. This is real. I'm not lying. And I'm trying to do everything I can to not make things worse. But it's like I'm constantly caught between this push and pull of, like, wanting to speak out and defend myself, and wanting to stay quiet to not cause more problems. All I know is I'm really anxious about tonight, because just because Stefan isn't the one that hurt me doesn't mean I wasn't hurt. Just because that isn't part of my story doesn't mean that I had something to add.
So as you can see, she was in full victim mode, but she fails to realize that she's told conflicting stories about the same events. That's going to make people question you. It's just what it is. And most of us know that you cannot be raped via Skype. She said he blackmailed her. If that's the case, okay, call it that. And what is it with these girls? They cannot say coerced correctly. They all say coerced. All right, so let's see what Twitter had to say after this breakdown. Rosie was trending twice yesterday, and the first one is, Rosie Jean's tearful rant draws mockery in Pearadise drama. So let's see what that one says. The video shows 34-year-old YouTuber Rosie Jean, known as Quirky Love Rosie, crying over criticism for her past ties to Stefan, founder of the Las Vegas body-positive group Pearadise. The recent docuseries Big Girls Wanted Escaping Pearadise exposed allegations of manipulation and predation there, with critics accusing Jean of aligning with Stefan before siding with victims and demanding space in their stories. Commenters mocked her tears as forced and urged her to step back for real survivors, while bathroom jokes like, "Is she pooping?" spread widely. This fits into ongoing tensions in the plus-size creator community called Girl World. As you can see, it's on the trending page here, and the headline is, Plus-size creator Rosie Jean faces backlash over Pearadise documentary Cameo. The documentary Big Girls Wanted Escaping Paradise exposes allegations of grooming and exploitation in a Las Vegas plus-size community run by a male founder. 34-year-old creator Quirky Love Rosie appears briefly after traveling for an interview, but critics in the Girl World snark scene accuse her of exaggerating ties for attention since she never lived there. Jean calls the response harassment, re-traumatizing her past experiences, announced a social media break while detractors mock her emotional videos as a shit fit and point to her pre-trailer hype. Yeah, remember she had a subplot. What happened to that? Last night after the documentary, Rosie, of course, had to upload some more stories so she could talk about the documentary again. She has never been there. She has not experienced any of that. She is not close with any of the girls there. I just think it would have been much better had they left her and Tess Holiday out of this.
Well, I just finished watching a docuseries with my boyfriend. I have a lot of thoughts just about the documentary, stories that were shared. It's kind of crazy seeing, like, Stefan directly say something on camera for the documentary that 100% contradicts something he said to my face last week. That was crazy. I first just want to say, like, I don't want to, like, go too in depth about anything because I want you guys to watch it. I think everyone should watch it and form their own opinions. I wasn't super surprised by how much I was in the documentary because of what I was told. I guess I had hoped they would provide a little more context to some things that just ended up not going with the flow of the story. I'm gonna hold off because there's like a lot of stuff I want to say, but I really appreciate that the stories of these victims were heard. And, you know, someone who was watching all this stuff go down in 2021 and onward, I'm just glad that this entire story is being talked about on a mainstream front. I hope all of you watch the documentary. I think it was very well made. I do have critiques, especially on how certain things were handled. Again, nothing has to do with me, right? But, like, everything to do with just, like, you know, with, like, the people who have passed and everything. I have some thoughts about that, but I want to hold off. And I also think, like, everyone else involved should have their time to share their thoughts and react and everything. This has just been an insane couple of weeks. And I was so anxious and I was so just overwhelmed by the unknown. Now I'm just sitting here kind of like, why was I freaking out so much? I don't even know. There's so much I want to talk about and say because, like, yeah. But I hope you guys still watch it. It's a really important story that needs to be heard.
So basically, Rosie, who went to Vegas to do this interview, had an eating bed in her hotel. You remember that? She had the sleeping bed and the eating bed. And she was there as an expert on feederism. I just find that really funny. So, again, that's what's happened so far. I just wanted to show you guys this because it popped up on my feed yesterday on Twitter. And I thought it was interesting. I don't follow this person. I don't know who they are. But they said, who labeled Rosie as an expert, though? For someone who doesn't want anything to do with this realm, she sure does love to insert herself into everything related with her biased ass bullshit. And that just pretty much sums it up. I think it was very odd that Rosie said, I wasn't surprised by how much I was in there. Girl, you were in there for like a minute of 3 hours. This was not about you or your story. This was about Stefan's victims. And I really hope they find peace. Now let's see what happens going forward. I'm sure Rosie will find something else to flip out about going forward. So Stay tuned. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.